Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of iPrint3D, and today we are back in the studio painting, and I apologize, I'm using a new camera and for some reason this entire footage just feels a little out of focus for some reason to me, and I didn't want to just scrap it and throw it away, so I tried to create an episode out of this as best as possible. So I do apologize if there's any bad footage. I'm so sorry. I tried my best. I'm getting used to the new camera and we're trying to figure out the best way we can use it. Anyway, what I'm doing here now first is we're applying our first layer of gray primer. This is a dark gray primer that's going to go on to the entire surface over the black primer that was already on there. Now this was already spray primed, and that was done with it was actually a rattle can, spray can, whatever you want to call it, and that was done a couple days ago, and we let that sit and dry and completely cure, and then I will start painting them individually one at a time after that. Like I said, I'm using a dark gray over the black. Once I'm done with the dark gray, I'm going to switch to a slightly lighter gray, and then we're going to up to white to build our complete highlights. And the reason I like to go into 3 stages is 2 stages I feel like is enough. So I apply the dark gray first as much as I can, and then I apply the light gray, and then I will apply very sparingly the white over everything else. And this part of the process can take you a little bit of time. I am speeding everything up here 2 times, so I do not move that fast. And this is supposed to be kind of a tutorial demonstrating my method of painting these little guys. And I wanted to kind of show how you can use mediums like speed paint and how you can apply things like dry brushing and stuff to create really, really cool looking miniatures without having to be a pro. And there are a lot of great painters out there, and I know, and I watch quite a few of them, and I actually respect quite a lot of them, if not all of them. And I don't think I'm anywhere near as good as any of them, but I do really enjoy painting miniatures, and I have learned a ton from watching them. One of the things I have learned is that shadows are super important, as are things like contrast and color harmonies. And so the things that I'm going to teach you in this particular episode is you're going to learn underpainting, which is what I'm doing now, and that's why I use, like I said, the 3 tones. And then you're going to see how I use different colors to harmonize with each other, to play a nice contrast off of each other with this character's color scheme. Now this is actually funny, this is a 3D printed piece, it's a defect. The base is actually wonky, and he has some slight defects on him, so I didn't sell him. So I kept him, and I decided to paint him myself for this particular video. Now I've done shark brutes before. In fact, I've done quite a few of them, and I actually like painting these guys. They're fun because you can kind of make them whatever color you want, and they're fun to paint. They have some neat details. They kind of look like big old zombie sharks with weapons and stuff. This one I kind of think of as the captain because he's got that hook and he's got the peg leg. So I kind of like this one a bit more. Finally here I'm applying the white, and as you can see, as I apply this over the light gray, this is going to give it a really bright color under palette. So I work in paints that are like contrasting paints. I work with inks mostly, and washes and glazes, so that they're really thin and you can see through them. They're transparent paints. So when you apply them over white, they settle really well and they look fine. They look bright over white. When they settle over black, they don't show much at all. The pigment just kind of settles into the shadow, and it really just gives it a darker tone of whatever color it is. And this is okay because on a miniature, you really kind of want these dark tones and shadows to be deep and recessed, because it'll give you a deeper, detailed look than you would normally get with just painting them flat colors. So, I mean, unless you're going to go in and do all your edge highlighting and shadows yourself, this is going to save you a lot of time, and that's why I like doing it this way. So the underpainting part process is actually quite important, because the better you get your shadows to look, and the better you get the underpainting to look, the better your overcoat is going to look on top of that. And this is especially important if you're using stuff like Games Workshop's contrast paints, Speed Paint by Army Painter, or even the Express Color line by Vallejo. All very important aspects to consider when you are working with that type of stuff. Now here I am starting to apply color. This color is called Raging Sea. This is a speed paint. And I'll apply it a little lightly at first, just kind of see how it goes on, and then you're going to see I kind of go nuts. And I simply let the paint kind of go where it wants. But I'm still controlling its direction and flow with the tip of the brush by moving it around the areas of the model I want and avoiding the areas I don't. Don't be too concerned with mistakes yet. We can go back and we can mask those areas off, and we can repaint them if we need to. This is layered painting, so you have to always remember, if you make mistakes, sometimes you can mask over and you can paint over the top of it, or sometimes you just have to kind of find a way to camouflage the mistake. My favorite technique is to paint a mask area over the area you want to kind of retouch, and then just paint under color over the top of it. Because inks and washes and speed paints and contrast paints are incredibly hard to paint over sometimes. This is really the only way to do it. So you have to kind of consider that as an option. And yeah, so anyway, we're going to go ahead and continue applying the color here. And I'm going to cut back in a minute, and we'll discuss some of the other techniques that I'm applying as we finish up this shark brute. Okay, now I'm applying a very thin down coat of skeleton bone. This is an Army Painter paint. This is actually an Army Painter air paint. It's like a tannish, I want to say it's like a khaki color almost. Kind of reminds me of desert sand, that sort of thing. This works very nice as a mask when you're trying to tone up white, but you don't want complete white, you want kind of an off-white. This works really well as an off-white. Works well as good for teeth, bones, scales, horns, parchment, things like that. It's great underpainting for that. So what I'll do here is usually I'll touch up anything that's cloth or metals even, because if I want them corroded, this works great. You'll put this underneath, and then you'll work up a different couple of colors on top, and you'll wind up with a really nice decayed looking metal. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover all the clothing, trying not to cover too much of the shadows because I want to keep a lot of that. But I don't really care too much because I'm going to be covering this back over with a wash anyway. So we're also going to be doing a dry brush over the top regardless, and that's going to give it a lot of definition. So I'm not too heavily concerned. The color he is right now is going to change drastically by the end of it. So now what I'm doing here is I'm applying pallid bone. Pallid bone is being applied to some of the areas that we just applied the skeleton bone to. Pallid bone is a speed paint by Army Painter. This one's a good one. Works really well for things like horns, teeth, bones, and scales. Like I said, it also works well to set up decay. So you can make things look really old and yellow by applying this to them. So I'm going to apply it underpainted on the sword. Not everywhere. It's going to be kind of sporadic, and then I'm going to do it on the back as well. So later on, when I apply my metallic colors and stuff like that, you're going to see that it's going to look rusted and corroded. It's going to look pretty cool. Anyway, we're just going to apply the bone where we need that. Make sure we get all the top layers, top levels, and edges. And I think we are good with that. Now he's got a little sash that's hanging down from his waist. I'm going to paint that Zealot yellow. That is an Army Painter color. Speed paint. In his clothing, I am going to do a slightly watered down dark wood. So I want them like a light brown. And go ahead and just make sure we get on all the little cracks. Want to make sure that we restore any shadows we lost. And that's one of the things you can do with masking is you lose some of your shadows from your underpainting, but you can restore them. You just have to remember to go pretty liberal with the paint when you cover over your cracks and crevices and stuff, and just make sure you're getting in the edges where you want to get. Now this is a nice color for clothes. It's nice and dark, so but it'll kind of mesh a little bit with his boots, but that's okay. I'm not too concerned with that. He's not exactly into fashion. Dude's just wearing what he's got to wear because he's literally a shark man that lives under the ocean. So there we go. Now his clothing is going to change a little bit here. I am going to apply a couple different coats, and we're also going to blend in some different additional colors here, kind of like a wet blend. So I'm going to take some of the Zealot yellow, I'm going to move it over to the belt so we can see that, and I'm going to paint a little bit of skeleton bone right in there wet. I'm just going to blend that in wet, and then I'm going to take that same brush with a little bit more skeleton bone, a little more Zealot yellow, and I'm going to now start patterning that all over the top, but very, very loosely, as you kind of see, like kind of like a sporadic pattern. I want his clothes to look dirty. I want him to look like he lives under the ocean. So I really want them to look dirty, like really dirty. And these will bring some of the shadows up a little bit, but that's okay because we don't want absolutely black shadows. We just want colors in there that are going to contrast deep versus the highlight of the brights that are going to be on the tops of the peaks of the model. And you can create some nice different effects by taking some wet blending. You can use different colors, like I'm going back with the skeleton bone, and I'm applying some more of that, and then I'm applying some more Zealot yellow, and I'm combining that with the dark wood, as I said, watered down, and then continuously moving that around to the different parts of the clothes to get some messiness look in there. And honestly, I think the end result there looks pretty cool. I'm also going to add some drops of Zealot yellow into the eyes and around the teeth to kind of make them look a little bloody. I'm going to add a little bit of Zealot yellow to the sword as well to give it some more additional decay layers, and you'll see as I paint the metal on how that's going to look at the end there. Okay, now the next couple stages here, we're going to be working in his boots. So this is hardened leather. Again, we are working with Army Painter Speed Paint. And in case you're wondering, yes, I love speed paints. They're great. Wonderful to use for this type of paint work because they really help you apply paint and get it into the shadows, and it just moves so well around little tiny models like this. It is a blessing. Love this stuff. It does have some weak points, as I mentioned in the video with the werewolf last week, but it does also have a lot of strong points. There are a lot of really cool benefits to using speed paints, and I think people should be a little more open to them. Give them a shot. Professionals probably use them as inks and washes and glazes, and folks like me probably just use them to make their minis look as fancy as possible without folks knowing that they use speed paints. I'm just kidding. No, I like to use speed paints for different techniques. The speed paints are fun because you can combine them with other types of paints in the speed line or contrast line, and you can really make them look cool when you start to kind of add layers and add effects. Now there, I just added the metallic silver to the top of that, and that's a very watered down metal paint. So that is, it's called Broadsword Silver. That's another speed paint as well. It's one of their metallic lines. I use that on pretty much anything metallic. I water it down a little bit. I do a 50-50, so I don't do it full strength. And I just kind of loosely apply that. Now look at that, how that looks on that sword. That totally looks like a decayed, like rusted sword. And really all we did was just apply a couple of paints underneath. So by the time we get that reflective coat going on top, you've already got all the detail you need underneath. So now I'm applying the dry brush on top, and this is the last step for him, pretty much. And this is actually a combination of 4 colors. I have combined Vallejo acrylic. These are all going to be Vallejo colors. This is Vallejo acrylic paint, game color royal purple, Vallejo acrylic paint flat purple, Vallejo flat white, and a Vallejo flat blue. And I have mixed those in equal parts, quarter a piece, and I have also added water as well as equal parts contrast medium to it, mixed that to a very watered down state, applied that to the dry brush, and then applied that to the model. That is what gives me my final color that I chose there for him, which is that lighter kind of turquoise blue with the deep turquoise in the shadows. Starfish there is painted with Moondrake Coral, and the rest of this is painted with another color by Army Painter called Caribbean Sea, which is a nice bright kind of darker blue. Sort of reminds me of an ultramarine blue, but I think it might be a little too purple. I'm not 100% sure. I've never tried this one on an ultramarine. It could possibly work. I'm going to try a number of different techniques on this base as well. We're going to do some masking on it and some wet blending in some areas just to try to make it look a little chunky. This is supposed to be underwater, so I kind of wanted this to make it look a little, like it's underwater. So we have like a plank of wood that he's standing on. There's some, sea life there behind him, so I'm going to mask that up a little bit. We've got that starfish over in the corner, which I've already painted, but I'd like to try and punch up the detail a little bit on this base. So we're also going to do some dry brushing and some wet blending of some of the paints. I'm using a lot of the same colors we've been using, the Zealot Yellow, the Skeleton Bone, as well as the Raging Sea and the Moondrake Coral, which we use on the starfish. Combining all those colors together, I let them sit for a moment, and then we're just going to kind of dry brush some of that into the base while it's still wet, and that's going to get us an interesting effect there. And then I'm going to go over it with a last shade of wash over that last area on the base, and that should pretty much cover it, except for finishing off the edge of the base itself in black. And we'll be just about done with this piece. All right, now that I set him aside so he's completely dry and I can actually handle him, this is the last looks. And no, the camera did not want to cooperate with me here either. As you'll see, it keeps going out of focus and I keep having to refocus it for some reason. But I'm trying to show y'all the details and his final look and what he kind of came out looking like. So hope y'all enjoyed this video. Hope this was an interesting tutorial, and it was for me, learning curve on learning this new camera, so I apologize again for that, but I hope y'all enjoyed this video somewhat anyway, and I'm sorry, it just keeps going out of focus, but we'll see you all next week, and thank you all so much for watching as usual. Take care. Bye-bye.